lot of times that roadblock that you hit is you as the owner. So sometimes step out of the way. I've always heard the reason the dinosaurs are extinct is because they didn't adapt. So don't be a dinosaur.
There's going to be a lot of dinosaurs in this business, I think, by the end of this decade, man. Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. I've got my friend and client, Mike Stone, in the building today. We are going to be talking about all things business and sales. I actually invited Mike on because he just went through the Goldman Sachs 10K small business training, and we were talking on the phone, probably a month ago, and he's like, hey man, I'm going through this training stuff. I was like, dude, would you come on the podcast and talk about some of the stuff that you learned from that training? And he was like, would love to share that with other people. He actually just mentioned Christina Shaw. He saw some clips from the podcast with her. If you guys haven't checked that out, that's episode Andy 508, I believe, right, is Christina Shaw. You guys can go to coachcarroll.com/podcast/508 if you guys want to check that podcast out. But Mike Stone's been in the business for 4 years. He started during COVID. He was a COVID agent. Hopefully we can say that word now. There for a while, we had to bleep out COVID like it was the F word. But Mike, I'm so excited to have you on here, man. Thanks for joining me in the Sales Factory.
Man, I appreciate you having me on this morning. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. Well, we'll hop right into this thing, man. I know you've been an agent for about 4 years. What's your team look like? How many staff you got? We got people that listen to this podcast from, I always say, the 13-year-old kid that just bought his first lawnmower starting out to, guys like Kevin Spann and, Greg Blanchard and those cats that are, running big offices, and everybody in between, man. I think there's lessons to learn from everybody. But tell us a little bit of background about yourself and kind of how you got into this business and what your office looks like today.
Well, man, so I worked in corporate America for 21 years. I worked for AT&T, actually running the dealer channel, the small business guys that had a location. I mean, they owned stores, but they weren't owned by corporate. So they were the small entrepreneurs themselves. So I did that for 21 years. I had actually made a joke with a friend of mine earlier in the year. I was like, hey, I've survived so many mergers and acquisitions. I know my time's coming. And 6 months later, I get laid off. I bounce around to a couple different things. Yeah. So, I got recruited with Allstate to come on board, and did all the stuff, and everything was going great. And the guy that recruited me was like, hey, man, looks like everything's going through. Congratulations. Today's my last day with the company, too. So not only was it during COVID in 2020, Allstate went through a big restructure. So I would say the first year to 18 months, it was just you're trying to tread water and survive that and survive your marriage, because my wife's like, you're not making money. What are we going to do? But fortunately for people, reaching out to different people and getting connected with, different agents. And man, for the most part, man, if you just ask people for help, they're willing to give you help.
Yeah, man.
So people like Christina Shaw, and even, talked to Kevin Spann several times to, talk from anywhere from the big guys to the small guys. As far as my agency goes, right now there's 3 of us. There's me and 2 other salespeople. That's it.
Cool,
we're at $3 million. We doubled our book size since took over. So looking just to continue to grow.
Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us, man. Whether you're at the top, the bottom, or the middle, there's always something to be learned. And I also had a billionaire friend tell me one time that no matter how big you get, you're still always going to be in the middle. There's always going to be somebody that's doing more than you, and there's always going to be somebody that's doing less. You're always going to be in the middle. So, well, that's cool, man. I appreciate you sharing. Before we hop into this 10K, training that you went through, I'm curious. This is why I love doing these podcasts, because I got to let's talk about that. What was your biggest thing that you saw in corporate America? Because when you hear about corporate America, it's oh gosh, man, they're so inefficient. It's so big, right? Big ships turn slow. What was something that you saw with your time in corporate America that was oh man, I'll make sure I'll never do that in my small business? Because I think there's a lot of lessons that can come from your foresight. You said 20 years, right? You were with AT&T?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, and we're not, if anybody listens to this from AT&T, we're not disparaging you guys. We're just finding what's a place of opportunity that, you said, man, they were doing things this way. And I think that, they could have really improved on that.
Golly, just trying to think through that. More than anything, and it really probably gets down to the people. So it
Mm.
was more, the bigger the organization, I think, the less in touch you are with different things. So I mean, I had some good bosses, I had some great bosses, and I had some not so great bosses
Mm-hmm.
throughout my tenure there. So the ones that were good bosses, cared about me as an individual and the team,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that weren't, they're just trying to climb that corporate ladder. And man, they were all about the numbers, and that was
Mm.
it. So, like, you know what? For me, I mean, I want to treat all my team as family because we spend more time together during the day than we do with our families. I mean, even if you're at home for 12 hours, you're sleeping 6 to 8 of those. So
Yeah.
you don't really have those. So I want to take care of those people, because they're going to take care of the customers, take care of me, and take care of everybody else. So
Wow. I love that, dude. Take care of the people because they take care of the customers. Wow.
yeah.
Little sound clip in there. Love it, man. Cool, dude. Let's shift gears. Talk to me about this 10K small business. I've got some other entrepreneur friends that have been through it. I've never got a chance to talk to them about it, so that's why I was
Okay.
excited to have you on. What was that format like? How many days was it? How many people were in the class? Kind of talk to us. Set the stage for
Yeah.
us on that.
It is. So it was a 13-week program. There's 9 different modules, and then there's a couple different workshops throughout the thing. So you had to go to class like a full 8 hours, one day a week.
Okay.
And there was a couple of times that you went twice a week. But like so, like module one, I'll just kind of read off here. It's like you and your business. So the very first class, you really put an exit strategy together. And
Wow.
we're like, well, why are we doing that on the first day? And the lady's like, hey, if you don't know what the destination is, you're not going to know how to get there.
Mm.
So so it's really mapping it out, and then you revisited it at the end of class. But that, and then you had growth and opportunity, and they really taught you how to like think outside the box. Um, because as entrepreneurs, sometimes you think this big, huge thing, or they like, well, hey, or we're not going to be able to hit that. And the guy's like, why not? Always think big, always think
Mm.
outside of that. Money and metrics. So as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're not good at. We kind of do. I guess like bank register or look at your checkbook register. And you're like, oh, I think I got enough money to buy that, and you just go buy it. So we really dug into reading financials. So you don't. I mean, I'm still not an expert on that.
Mm.
But you get into that. You also get into you're the leader. Like, hey, what is your team? All these different personalities. You're meshing them together, knowing what that is. And then there was marketing and selling, um, operations and processes, um, being bankable. So talking about having that relationship with the bankers.
Mm.
Find a banker, having that relationship. You may not need them today, but you may need them tomorrow. So always have that relationship, and then just your action for growth. So the whole point was put a growth plan together, come up with come up with either a new product or a strategy that's going to help you grow over the next 5 years. Taught us how to forecast that out and really put that in place. So
Nice,
it
man.
was a lot. And then
Love
there was
it,
a couple of
dude.
workshops of digital marketing, really going over the financial statements, negotiations. So it was really good.
That's cool, man. Well, I want to break over the next 30 minutes or so that we got left on here. I want to break some of these down and
Okay.
really dig deep and give some of the listeners some good takeaways. Before we hopped on, you had mentioned that somebody had come up to you and was like, "Hey, I think I know you. Can you recap that for the listeners? We weren't live yet. This was
Yeah.
before we went on air, but talk about that because I think in the digital space, in the digital world that everybody lives in now, it's super important for people to understand the power of social and the power of having a
Yeah.
digital presence, right? Because there's the online
Right.
world and the offline world. And so, like, so many businesses, they only still play in that offline world, and they don't realize
Yeah.
there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in the online world that you're just not talking to. Like, they're just out there, you're just
Right.
not talking to them.
Right.
So recap what you said right before we went on the air with that.
So I was in Nashville last week for the All State National Summit. So it's an awards trip and everything. So the last night we were there, we were at the Musicians Hall of Fame doing our stuff. So we're leaving. I get on the bus. My wife and I, we sit down, and this lady just behind me, she taps me on the shoulder. She's like, "Hey, I know you." I'm like, I'm like, like in your brain, you're like, oh my God, I don't know who this person is.
Right, like you can't remember their name. It's like the
Yeah,
worst thing ever
yeah,
when people are like, "Hey, I know you." You're like, "Oh man."
oh yeah. And I'm like, okay. And look, and these are agents from all over the country. So, and she goes, well, really, I don't know you. I just know you because I see your stuff on social media. So I think I know you. So
Ah.
yeah. And and I had taken a class with Christina Shaw, who's an agent. Yeah. In in New York. And she's, we're communicate often, but I text her this morning. I was like, hey, here's what happened. And she's like, that is so awesome.
Yeah,
So
man, that's the power of social right there. I love that.
yeah.
Well, cool, dude. Thanks for sharing. Let's hop back into these. So the notes I took with the 10K, they were going through like exit strategy, thinking big, money and metrics, you being the leader, marketing and selling, being bankable, and action for growth. Being bankable is huge, man. Like I don't know if we'll have time to get into that. That for my contractor friends that are listening, like that's the biggest thing. I can remember the first loan I ever got. And Mike, I don't know if you know my background. I started my first business my senior year of high school. My listeners have heard this a million times, so I won't repeat the story. But I started my first business my senior year of high school, and I remember my first loan that I ever tried to get was for a trailer, right, for my lawn care business that I had started. Yeah. And I went there. I needed $1,000, and the banker was like, "Listen, man, like I can't give you this money." I'm like, "Dude, I have these accounts that are paying me," and he's like, "You have no credit." I'm like, "What?" Right. And it was like that aha moment of like, oh, you're not just born with credit. Like the system is created to where it's like magically you're just supposed to start, with a 700 credit score. And it's like it doesn't work that way. You almost got to beg, borrow, and steal to get some of that. So being bankable is super huge, especially in the contract business, especially for agents, right, that are growing and scaling. If you guys want to buy more books of business, you gotta, for lack of better terms, you gotta have your shit together in order to be able to get those loans to continue growing, right?
You do, and not only that, but when you go in and talk to the banker, you've got to have your, I guess, like your pitch down.
Yeah,
like you can't just walk in and, hey man, I need $100,000.
Yeah.
Well, what's it for? Well, I'm going to buy a book. Like, no, you got to have your stuff together and show them how that you're going to pay that back.
Yeah, man,
So
absolutely.
that's the main thing that they want to know. Like, hey, how are you going to repay me?
Yeah, how am I getting my money back out of this? Talk to me about the think big, because as a team, my team, we read a book every quarter, and we actually just read 10X Rule, which was fun. Grant Cardone, Thinking Big, 10X Rule.
Cardone.
You can take him or leave him on some things, I think, but the idea was like getting the team to think big at a 10X standard. So talk to me. What were your takeaways from the class about thinking big?
But yeah, he got you into thinking. Just like there was a guy, and I just remember one. I don't remember exactly the exercise because it was like 3 months ago, but it was you had to come up with something, and like for your company, and like how is that going to change? And we had one guy in there that they developed software, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's basically autistic children that help them transition into the workforce. It was pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. But he said, the guy was like, and he said, well, how do you do this and where you're going? And he said, well, I want to take it and get into, like 10,000 schools or whatever. And he goes, that's good. He says, what if you think this? You reach out to, Apple or Elon Musk or somebody like that, and they love it. And instead of being in that many schools, like you are nationwide, global. He goes, think that big.
Wow.
Don't just put a ceiling on it. So it was really cool. Yeah.
So don't put a ceiling on your thinking. I like that.
Yeah.
What's thinking big for you, man? What's your big thinking for your agency?
Well, my goal was to get to 3 million by the end of this year, and then to get to this with a stretch goal of like 3.2. But I would love to buy another agency. I would love to get to $10 million. I don't have many years left. I'm like in my mid 50s, so I started this career late. But
say, man, you got at least 30 more years in you.
Well, yeah. I mean, my wife just keep bringing home the money. That's it. But no, I mean, doing that and love to just, I would love to sell it and just kind of ride off into the sunset and just take care of all the grandkids, man.
Love it, dude. So that kind of ties into the exit strategy as well, which is cool. And I tell people this all the time, man. It's like I was just on. I'm speaking in Nashville actually next week. I'm kicking myself. We're only about 3 hours from Nashville. I should have came down and hung out with you guys because we had a ton of clients that were down there for that event with Allstate. But it's the huge convention. They're more home service based, and I tell everybody all the time, you got to start with happiness. That has to be your North Star metric. Are you happy with what you're doing? Because I think a lot of times people are getting into business just for the sake of getting into business, right? And they don't really know why they do what they do or why they wake up and go to work every single day. And if you're not happy with what you do, dude, that's awful. It's like being in prison.
Well, yeah, right. And that was one of the things they talked about. And I forgot exactly which metric it was, but just Simon Sinek, Start With Why.
Yeah, that's a good book.
What is your why?
That's
a really
I just
good
finished
book. It.
And, oh, okay.
It was like Apple computers. What makes Apple different? Honestly, they're no different than something else. But they figured out the why, and they don't communicate what they do. They really communicate why they do it.
Yeah.
And you just get a huge following from that. So.
Yeah. I think too, man, is the when you start with the why. I always love the quote of Henry Ford where he said, "If I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." Right? And Apple does the same thing, right? If Steve Jobs would have asked them, "Well, what do you?" "Well, I just want a music player that can hold more songs on it." Right? It's they would have never the general public would have never thought, "Well, can you take my phone and my iPod and put them together in the same thing?" Right? That would have never that probably would have never came up. So it's being an innovator, starting with why. Apple definitely wants to change the world, and we'll save Warren Buffett selling off half his Apple stock for another podcast, but that was kind of interesting. But what about the leadership thing, man? I know you said in here you're the leader. You've got a bunch of different personalities that are coming together, right, in an office space, and I have to manage this with my team. Especially we're fully remote, so I got people all over, and we got one of our AWS guys is in Kenya, and it's such a unique. Yeah, man, it's turned into a pretty interesting business, to say the least. But I think that we're a long way. Andy and I always joke. Andy's our creative director. Him and I started working together in 2017, beginning of 2018. Okay. And it was just to do vlogs. I was like, hey, man, I'm looking for somebody that can shoot and edit my vlog. And so that's where we started. And now it's we're building AI-powered social media dashboards with guys in Kenya. And it's so far over our head, but it goes back to that leadership piece that – if you can find the right players, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, right? Steve Jobs says that. He said, I don't want to hire somebody and tell them how to do their job. I want to hire them, and then they tell me what they need from me to be successful, right? Talk to us a little bit about what you took away from that class from the leadership front.
Well, and that was one of the things that they said too, is as an entrepreneur, and you might can relate to this too. It's nobody can do it like me. It's my vision, it's this, it's that. And when reality is if you just tell people the vision, and if they buy in, they're probably going to do it better than you.
I was going to say, nobody can do it like me, but there's a lot of people that can do it better because I'm so 100%. Discombobulated. Andy's here today while we're shooting all these podcasts because I tried to do the podcast all by myself here in the studio. And I was like, Andy, I'll just give you the footage and tell me. It took 3 months, Mike. 3 months for me to get all the footage to him, and it was so discombobulated. He's like, "Dude, can I just come out there and organize the shit the day of? It makes my life a lot easier." So yeah, man. A lot of times we have that entrepreneur curse, right? Where it's nobody can do it like I can. It's but if you look around, you actually can find people that can do it better.
Well, exactly. And one of the things that I took away is a lot of times that roadblock that you hit is you as the owner. So sometimes step out of the way. Yep. But it was really just finding out, because we all have all these different personalities. Find out the personality of your team, because we can all hear one thing and take something different out of it. So, communicate, learn everybody's personality and what is their style.
Yeah, for sure, man. And if you guys are listening to this, I'm actually a certified McQuaig coach, I guess you could say. McQuaig is a personality assessment assessment test that you can use for skills training for your team and also to understand them. So if you guys are listening to this, just go to CoachCarroll.com, fill out the form, say, hey, I need some help with the McQuaig assessment. We can help you guys get loaded up with that on your team. It's super cool because it talks about the thing I like about McQuaig is it is their level of assertiveness. So, like, are they, demanding or accepting? Are they assertive? Are they social? And what I love about McQuaig is it gives you kind of I call them mixing boards, right? Like, you guys see me messing with my little podcast thing here. I say when God creates somebody, it's not like, okay, you get all a number one and no 2, 3, or 4, right? Like, how boring would the world be if there were only 4 types of people, right? We're all a little bit different. Everybody's a little bit different. But what's cool is McQuaig gives you these, like, almost like these layovers that says, hey, if you're hiring for a frontline salesperson, boom, this is where they should be at. Their social ability needs to be high. They need to be dominant, but not too dominant where they're going to railroad and ruin a deal. They need to be able to be self-disciplined. And so it's pretty cool, man. I'm sure they probably talked about DISC or Myers-Briggs or Colors or Anno. There's a million of them out there. I just happen to use McQuaig. But have you done anything like that, Mike, with your team yet?
Yeah, I did. I have a new hire. So I haven't done it with him, but yeah, we've done that with my existing staff. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, we're all a little different.
Yeah, and it's cool to know because now when you manage, Matt Monero is a business mentor of mine. He's down in Texas. He owns commercial fleet financing. He put in a policy in his business, which is pretty cool, about back to the personality styles. Everyone had to have like their personality profile like hanging on their cubicle. And before a manager could come in and like coach a team member, they had to review their profile first, so that they know who they're talking to, right? And so like you don't want to be the hard coach if somebody's not motivated that way, right? If they're motivated by feelings and emotion, then you got to have a sit down, a little softer conversation with that person.
Right.
And I thought that was super cool that he does that.
Well, there's my wife works at our church. And they took I don't know which one it's, but it's these blocks, and they're the different colors, and you stack the blocks according to the way it is.
Oh, that's cool.
It is, and so it's like some people want all the details. Some people are like, hey, just be brief, be quick, and get out. You know?
Absolutely.
So, and you got to, like you said, you got to know the style, and you should do that beforehand. So
yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. I'll drop one on that one. Marketing and selling, man. Let's talk about that. We're got about maybe 15 minutes left here. Let's spend some time on marketing, selling. Obviously, you're a client of ours, right? So like you understand social media is important. Talk to the agents out there that maybe are still on the fence about the digital world, or namely social. And you've went through Christina Shaw's course, which is cool. Like you're to me, I always like working with clients that get it, and like sometimes it's hard to like put that into like a box, right, of like who gets it. But talk to the agents out there that may in 2024 may still be on the fence about this digital world that we all live in.
Man, it's crazy. Look, well, first, you guys have helped, but I have a 20-year-old that's a sophomore, or actually she's going to be a junior next week at University of Louisiana Lafayette. She's coming in this weekend, and she's like, Dad, we're going to your office and we're going to make 5 videos. So she's helping me with those, because if not, man, I would do them. I'm that personality that's going to do them for like 2 weeks and then I'm going to quit because I'm distracted by something else.
Yeah.
But she keeps me accountable, and she comes up with, and be yourself. But, you think everybody's thinking like, I don't even know what to do. You know what? I mean, pay a college kid to help you to do some things and think outside the box. Man, if you've got any kind of personality, let it come through. But like I had one video, and actually when I had my meeting with Nick, I don't know, a while back, and we're looking at stats. He's like, man, you did something here that like there's a huge spike. I'm like, I don't know what it was. So we go back and look. I'm like, oh, I did a video of 2 of my grandkids. So, but it was pretty awesome that way.
Yeah, anytime you can just be real, man. Like that's, and I'm still waiting for the client that's like, hey, I'm Joe, I'm the boring insurance guy. Like that's probably a brand too. Like you could be that as well, right? It's like you're going
to connect with somebody.
Somebody, all the CPAs and attorneys are going to love you, right? They're all boring too.
That's
we'll
right.
we'll
But
knock at our
just
attorney
get on
friends
and
out
do
there.
it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, like we've got your paid ads running. We're helping you with that. And dude, I love that you have somebody. We call those your social media rock star, your social media superstar, right? It was funny because you guys have seen the. If you're listening to this, you've probably seen those commercials where it's like Billy Joel just stole your golf cart, right? It's like, they're not a rock star, they're not a superstar. We came up with this before those commercials came out, which was kind of funny. But the idea of having a high school age, senior, junior, senior, or a college level kid, like you're saying here, 20 years old, they're going to know the platform way better than you guys are. They're going to be able to handle a lot of this for you. And I guess, Mike, talk to me about, like, Christina Shaw, when I had her on, she said there's not a cost to having a brand, but there's a huge cost to not having a brand. Talk to me about your thoughts on that. Yeah, that was I went about knocked me out of my chair. I was like, shit, okay, that was good. We'll clip that one. But talk to me about, like, what makes sense for you, because a lot of times when I hear agents like, oh, I'm not getting the ROI. I'm not getting the ROI out of social media. And branding's more of a long-term play, but, like, how do you justify, spending money in this space and maybe not seeing, like, the immediate ROI out of it?
Well, I think it's and I've always heard, like, also too, you got to get it typically takes 7 touches before a customer makes a buying decision.
Yeah, 7 to 12.
So,
Yep.
I mean, and like you can't just do it once and expect the floodgates to open. I mean, it's just being consistent, and because in my industry, and I tell, like, new agents all the time that I talk to, like, people don't wake up in the morning going, you know what, today I'm going to shop for insurance. That's first on my list. So.
Yep.
And if you don't think about that, it's typically when they get a renewal or something like that, they're looking at, like, oh my God. When I talked to a lady yesterday, her insurance went up like $1,200 on her homeowners. Yeah. So she's like, I just started shopping and I looked and you were one of the first ones that popped up. So I called you.
Boom.
So you got to, that's just it. Just keep out there and keep at it, because eventually it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like, planting a garden. You plant a seed and you water it and do all these things. The seed's not going to pop up immediately. It's going to take some time. So just be patient and consistent.
Man. I'm gonna for everybody that's listening right now, I'm actually drawing a funnel on my notes right now, and it's basically the funnel of, and you'll have to, if you go to coachcarroll.com/podcast, you can download my show notes of me writing here. But essentially, Mike, at any given time, only about 7% of the market is actually in the buying process, and then you've got another 93% that aren't, right? And so, like, those are the people that get the bad claims experience or have the rate increase. And to this day, I mean, I've talked with mega agent owners, brand new agency owners. No one else has been able to tell me a buying signal. Like, for me to never sell insurance, we've pretty much figured out the insurance business on the sales side. It's a rate increase or a bad claims experience is why people go shopping, right? People say, well, what if they move? Okay, they're probably going to get a referral from whoever they have their insurance with now. Or if they have a drop ad, right, you're probably going to drop or add with whoever you got, right? Like, if I'm at the dealership and I'm buying a new vehicle, I'm not going to sit there for 3 hours to quote a bunch of insurance. I'm calling my guy and saying, hey, man, I'm selling this and I'm buying that. Can you swap them over for me? Cool, I'm out of the dealership, right? Fax them over the insurance card. But you said something there. It's like, you got to be there when they are there, right? So when that customer says, "Oh my gosh, I just opened up this letter and the gecko just bumped my rate $1,200 a year, I'm gonna go shopping now." You've got to be in that space, man, and so it's a long-term play.
Yep, exactly. So you've got to do that, and the more you do the social media, the more those things, like, even if they can't remember your name, they're like, hey, I know this guy. What is it? And if you're on there, they may scroll, and there you are again.
For sure, for sure. I always tell agents too, is like, there's a branding piece, right? So, like, the whole reason Mountain Dew spends $7 million on a Super Bowl ad is so that tomorrow or the next day or next week, whenever your car needs gas again, you go to the gas station, you click on the pump, you let it fill up, and you're like, I'm going to go inside and grab something to drink. You're standing in front of that wall full of drinks. They're hoping that and it's going to get crazy, it's your reticulating activator, which is part of your brain, says, oh, a Mountain Dew. I think I'll have one of those today. And really, it's that some subconscious is kicking in because you saw the ad on the Super Bowl, right?
Absolutely.
advertising works the same way. Like that's the power of advertising. It's not changed since the 1940s. Like we didn't come along and say, "Cool, social media. We're going to make this thing called advertising now." It's been
Right.
around forever, and so that reticulating activator helps you guys, makes them think of you. The idea too is like you said that. That person's like, hey, I got a $1,200 increase, so I went online and boom, there you were. When they search auto insurance in your area, right, they're going to do two different types of search. They're either going to search you out by brand. They're going to go and type in
Right.
Mike Stone Insurance, and boom, there you are. That's a super exclusive
Right.
lead that's going to close at a very high rate. Or they're going to type in auto insurance in 41008, whatever your zip code is, right?
Right.
And then when they pop up, they go, oh, number 3, Mike Stone. I've heard that name before. I've seen that guy. And so now they
Yeah.
skip right down and click on you versus clicking on the number one guy that's at the top.
Right.
It's such a long-term play. I also think that, and I'd be curious your thoughts. I think you just have to decide, like, are you going to be a new age agent or not, right? Like, is this a space you're going to be playing in or not, right?
Yeah. Man, and that was one of the things, with my corporate job. It's like, you know what? I mean, things evolve
Mm.
constantly. I mean, just look at where we are. I mean, if you'd have told me, 20 years ago that I would get more bang for my buck out of social media, I'm like, first of all, what is social media? You know? And now it's like, really? I just got to go on and make crazy videos or whatever just to get people to come to, buy insurance or yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and you've got to, and guess what? It probably in 5 years or 10 years, there's going to be something different that's
That's it,
going to
man.
come along. So,
Yeah.
I've always heard like, the reason the dinosaurs are extinct is because they didn't adapt.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
don't be a dinosaur.
Woo. There's gonna be a lot of dinosaurs in this business, I think, by the end of this decade, man.
Yeah.
And I was on with Gary V not too long ago, and he was like, "It's a meritocracy, right? It's like those
Yeah.
those old cats that have been in business for 30 years that don't adapt, they're gonna lose their business, and rightfully
Yeah.
so, to the new cats that will adapt and talk to the market in the way the market wants to be spoken to."
That's it. Yeah. And insurance is so crazy now. Like it used to be, when you were little, you grew up, you turned 16, your dad took you down to his insurance agent, signed you up, and you just, time after time, but not anymore. People like to go shop and go out and do all those things. So
Hmm.
it has definitely changed.
Love it, man. Love it. Just finishing these up here. Cool. What else, man? Anything else that you can share with us from the training that you took away? I mean, we talked about exit strategies, thinking big,
Yeah.
money and metrics. I mean, metrics are huge. Scorecards and understanding your money and your
Yeah.
cash flow. Being the leader, you are the roadblock. Communicating with your team. We
Yeah.
just we just went deep on marketing and selling, and then being bankable. We talked about. What about action for growth? Talk to us a little bit about that as we wrap this thing up.
Well, the biggest thing was this is, and Goldman Sachs does a great job too. You're in small groups and every every module you have multiple exercises and you get out and you break out and they actually pair you up with different people so you're not going back to the same two or three people that you have that relationship with.
Huh.
But after, I don't know, two or three different times, they ask, well, what did you guys learn during this exercise? And I like, hey, look, man, we are all so diverse, whether it comes from age or race or sex, even the businesses that we own. We had everybody from a restaurant owner to a construction to software companies to insurance
Wow.
people to attorneys, bar owners. And it was like, we we all have the three same problems as entrepreneurs. It's people. We all have a challenge finding people to work and finding people that want to do the job. Our processes, because we have the process in our head, and as entrepreneurs, sometimes we fail to write it down and put it on paper or and communicate it effectively. And the
Playbooks.
last one, yeah, playbooks, absolutely. So, man, the guy that came in and taught that process. Oh, the last one was money. But the guy that came in, so people, processes, and money is the big things with entrepreneur. But the guy that came in and taught the process class, dude owned a chocolate factory in Sacramento, California. And he was like, man, you just got to sit down and everything from the start of the day, how to open, unlock the door, turn the lights on. He said, you need to write it down.
Mm.
And just every process throughout the day, all the way through. So,
Yeah, man. That's I'll give you guys the listeners a little tidbit. Dan Martell's book Buy Back Your Time. So I'm actually in SAS Academy. We're doing a ton. My leadership team. We're watching all these trainings and stuff. And he calls them playbooks instead of SOPs. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool. It's way more fun than a SOP, right?
Right.
And so his method, and I'll give this to you guys again. This is Dan Martell, so shout out to him. It's the 4 C's. So it's camcorder method. So record whatever it is you're doing, right? So screencast videos or videotape it if you want to. So the camcorder, then clarity, which is kind of like the process. Give me a high level of the process. Then give me a checklist of, hey, these things have to get done in order for this process to be done. And then the cadence, how often does it get done, right? If it's like unlocking the door, that's probably an everyday thing, right? I would hope we would unlock the door every day, not just on like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. But to me, man, I had never really had anybody teach me a framework to be able to put that in, right? Like, it's like, yeah, just document your processes. It's like, okay, well, where do I start? And so the camcorder method was really, really cool, especially, if you're in a quote unquote white collar business where a lot of this stuff is on a computer, right? You can screencast it, but then also you can, I even took this to the next level. Our guys that come out and help us out here at the farm, like I took aerial screenshots of the farm, started highlighting areas that like this area gets weed eated once a week. This area gets weed eated every 2 weeks. And it's like, being able to just document and process the most simplest task, because then it's there. And the biggest thing I took away from Dan Martell is it creates streamlined effects when you onboard or hire new people, right? So I hope that all my team will stay with me forever, but if they ever leave and I've got to backfill, if I have processes in place, or what is it, Andy? We always say if somebody gets abducted by an alien, right? Like if we come in tomorrow and Andy got abducted by an alien, or hit by a bus, a little more. I like that. What are the processes, and like where's the playbook that we can go to? So I wanted to share that with you guys. That's cool, man. People, processes, and profit. That's a little Marcus Lemonis there too. So well, cool, man. Anything else to add, Mike? I appreciate it, dude. This has been fun.
It has been fun. The only thing I would say, man, if you are a small business owner, man, you could go and apply for that at 10ksbapply.com. I would highly encourage. I think there's 23 or 24 areas around the country, but you can also do it online. I mean, I would encourage you, if you do it in person, because you get a lot, man. You make a lot of connections too in the city, not just with your cohort, but you get access to different lenders, different business leaders in the community that can help you out a lot. I mean, I made connections through the class that I wouldn't have made otherwise. So
that's cool.
I would encourage you to do it.
That's cool.
And it's a time investment, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're investing in yourself, man. That's the best dividends you can get. It's
like getting a master's in your business.
That's right. I'll see if we can find the link to that. I'll have Andy link it up in the show notes on the podcast page when this thing drops. So if you guys are listening to this, you can check that out. Cool, man. Mike, hey, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Mike, how do they find you online? What's your social handles? Or like if anybody's like, hey, man, I'm thinking about starting an insurance office, I'd like to talk to that guy.
You put me on the spot. So on Instagram, it's Mike Stone Agency.
Okay.
And then Facebook, my personal, you can hit me up on there too. It's just facebook.com, mike.stone.9440.
Cool.
And then my TikTok, I don't know. I text my 20-year-old. She's probably still in the bed right before. I was like, hey, I'm going on a podcast. What's my TikTok handle? I don't even know.
That's fine, man.
It's got to be Mike Stone Agency or something like that. So
they'll be able to find you. They'll be able if TikTok's not banned by the time this drops. So maybe it won't even be a platform anymore. We'll see.
Who knows?
I'm hedging my bets on that one. I stopped pushing agents over there because I think there was some news that came out about ByteDance sharing user data back with China. So we'll see after November what happens. So Mike Stone in the sales factory, man, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for spending some time and pouring into my audience, dude. This has been fun.
Oh, it has been a blast, man. I appreciate you having me on this morning, dude.
Absolutely, guys. Well, hey, guys, if you're still sticking with us to the end, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to this thing on. And if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode. And until next time, here's to your success. Hustle, it's worth it.